Hello everyone, and welcome to this slightly different edition of the Rollin Illini from right here inside Beckwith. I am Avery Schaefer, live here with Jason from UPTV, and the brainchild of this show, Ryan Wilson.
Yay!
Has joined me today. He might make a cameo, I don't know, but let's get right to it, shall we? The National Championships of Wheelchair Basketball are occurring right now in steamy, hot Arlington, Texas. Sadly, both Illini men's and women's teams have lost in their openers, and they both have a quick turnaround with a game just after the show at 7 p.m. tonight. So good luck, guys. Speaking of which, my normal co-hosts, Joshua Joins and Malcolm Hill, are away at the tournament. So,
it's Niles, actually. We'd love to have Malcolm on, though.
I stand corrected. So, good luck to those guys. Without further ado, I'd like to talk about the apparent decline in sports youth participation. Whether able-bodied or not, this is a problem. The participation in youth sports leagues has declined from 49% in 2011 to a measly 37% as of 2017. What does this mean? It means that less young kids are getting exposed to sports and the social and emotional benefits it can bring. This is particularly useful when you are a member of the Paralympic movement due to the increased number of psychological obstacles you may or may not face. To correct this issue, I propose, similar to what Tatiana did with the Chicago Marathon, I pair up a disabled athlete with a able-bodied counterpart so that they can share in the experience of playing the sport. To reference something that Kyle Jankowski, one of our previous guests on the show and captain of the wheelchair basketball team, said, Illinois wants to be feared on the court, and in order to do that, an argument can be made for belief in oneself, and youth sports can facilitate that.
So Avery, who do you think will win tomorrow for the Illinois wheelchair basketball team?
Oh, yes. We're playing Auburn tomorrow, and I think that the key for victory could possibly be play in the interior, in the post, and then getting it out to people like the aforementioned Jankowski, and when he returns, Miles Hill. Both of them are really good at shooting the three, and because Auburn mostly plays a 3-4 defense, I do believe that the key is going to be outside. So, you may be asking, what has college basketball meant to several of these athletes? And the answer, as provided by Gabe Dan on the show last week, seems to have been that it represented a chance for team camaraderie and basketball for most of these wheelchair athletes is more than just a game. There is a backstory for most of them. One of those backstories that I found most interesting in doing my research is that of Matt Bushy, who actually played as an Illini here, and then, as most of you know, moved on to coach. When asked about that transition from coaching, from player to coach, Bushy was quick to point out that he wanted to instill a value of teamwork into his guys by facilitating them getting to know each other on things called mandates, in which the players off the court engage in social activity. The role of coaches as mentors, especially for wheelchair athletes, I'd argue, is to facilitate the sport with a larger message. And that, my friends, is why I am here on the show today. To convey the message that you or someone can do anything they set their mind to. Seeing the ball go through that hoop, for them, symbolizes more than just 2 points. It symbolizes, in some cases, the world. With that in mind, let's move on to talk about my journey here at U of I actually got in here through an essay largely about sports. And while I can't play, I can use sports to convey emotional messages. In my essay, I said one of the things I drove home was that one of the roles of good announcers, able-bodied or not, is to foster a connection between viewer and game experience. One of the people who does that best here in Illinois is Don Gerard. Don Gerard, former intern here at WPGU, and let's just double check here to make sure I'm not seeing anything wrong here. Saying anything wrong here. Voice of Illini football for BTN Student View. Don Lynn. Well, while I check the pronunciation of his name, I will go on to talk about my experience here at Illinois attending sporting events. I do feel that a lot of the attendance at university sporting events here at U of I is focused on the able-bodied community. And that is largely a function of what I would argue is misunderstandings about the role of athletics being just as integral to wheelchair athletes as able-bodied ones. I do believe that through the show, we can, as Ryan Wilson said to me before the show, foster a greater amount of coverage and hopefully thus increase understanding of some of these stories in the larger context of the social issues on which a lot of them comment. So I'm going to bring in some updates here. Hang on. I've got the wheelchair basketball scores up here with me, and one of the big stories from today's games: women lost back-to-back to defending defending national champions. The Alabama Crimson Tide. This is one of the games that Kyle Jankowski and Gabe Dan pointed out as a big early test for the team. Also, Matt Bushy indicated that the majority of the time, we learn more from our wins than from our losses. And with that, I welcome in my guest of honor and roommate, Zain Bando. So, Zain.
I will get out of the way as we make a transition here. Wheelchair Tetris in action. Hi guys, bye guys. Oh, okay. Now introducing Zain Bando.
So, Zain,
Yes, sir.
one of the things I wanted to ask you on here, and something that our fans watching right now may be wondering, is, as a fellow aspiring sports commentator, how do you see the role of the Paralympic movement and people with disabilities in general to further the understanding of what we actually can do?
Well, I think that as the years have gone on, I feel like there's a little bit more of an inclusive measure that I've noticed, especially with the people that I've gotten a chance to meet who don't have disabilities. They're good at asking more questions and all that stuff. They kind of want to know what we do. I feel like in terms of the Paralympic realm, though, I feel like the popularity could definitely increase, and shows like this should be at the forefront of it. I don't really know of a show that's like this on other college campuses other than this one. So I think the more that we can kind of highlight the good in what we do in comparison to like what our flaws may be for people with disabilities, that's probably the best measure.
So, from what you've said, I gathered that you believe that a majority of the missed market in coverage is a result of misunderstanding that has now been corrected. Is that, am I?
In terms of my perspective and who I've gotten a chance to interact with, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, how do you plan to, let me back up. Do you have a plan of action to change that?
To change people's misconceptions is what you're asking?
Yes.
I say it's just more about educating them about really who we are, and that we are human beings, and that even though we may look a little different, most of us are all the same in terms of our intelligence and what we can bring to the table.
Yes. So, as I know, but as our viewers don't, your favorite sport is football.
You're close. Favorite sport is actually mixed martial arts.
Oh, I knew that. But anyway, let's talk about football for a minute,
Okay.
shall we? A tradition here at the U of I, upon commencement, for those who don't know, commencement is our induction. It is customary for able-bodied and students with disabilities alike to convene on the football field for a picture, and obviously then the team goes to battle, in which they put themselves, their bodily health on the line, and their mental toughness on the line in a football game. Does getting to take a picture in a place where battle will be done mean anything to you as a member of a, shall we say, under-recognized group?
Can you be more specific as to what you're actually asking? I'm a little bit confused.
Yes. Does that ritual of getting to take a picture on a battleground in any way, shape, or form increase your loyalty to Illinois, shall we say?
I just think it shows that you care about the teams and you try to get to interact with the players more than most.
So I know that your interest in sports self-promo here, or shall I say a partner promo, you have a resume to die for. And one of the things you've said, or rather gotten to do, is go to WGN.
Yes, sir.
Has any of the advice you've gotten over there, or anywhere else you've visited, influenced you as an aspiring sports broadcaster?
Yeah, because it gave me a glimpse of the everyday life of what these sports anchors do, and I think it's very tremendous.
One of the things that I've been thinking about, and I'm going to put myself in the spotlight a little bit here, is the fact that I can't write, and I can't keep a scorecard.
I can't keep a scorecard myself.
So, have you thought about solving that problem?
Not necessarily, because with all that stuff with scorecards and everything, when I go to baseball games, I'm just more there to enjoy the game. I feel like if you want to do scorecards, you're a passionate baseball fan, you understand the analytics of the game. I can totally understand why you would want to do that. Me being a person on the outside looking in who's not a passionate baseball fan, but a baseball fan that watches the games when they mean something, it's not as of importance to me as it may be for someone like yourself.
So, in an avenue like mixed martial arts,
Okay?
that you are passionate about.
Yes, sir.
Let's take that for example and ask you the same question. Have you ever kept a scorecard to score along with the judges?
Yeah, I have. I make my own custom ones, sometimes for the fights that matter, and I score them in my head, and sometimes what I'll do is, there's a printable score sheets, and I'll print them out, or I'll just type them on my computer, and it helps me keep track of the event, because it helps me remember who fought. So, yeah.
And for those who don't know, I am standing next to sitting next to really the walking encyclopedia of UFC knowledge.
That's 100% accurate.
Or shall I say the rolling encyclopedia of...
That's right.
So, you could have picked any sport in the world. What drew you specifically to UFC?
Well, what drew me to it was how tremendously athletic these fighters were, how most of them actually came from collegiate wrestling backgrounds. I found that interesting, and I found that
Really?
yeah, a lot of them actually do. And what makes it even more interesting is just the pure energy and will that these fighters fight with. Like it's the most natural sport to where you don't need any equipment. It's just you, the other person, and the referee, and you get to showcase your martial arts skills to the world. And you know that someone has to win, someone has to lose, and that's what makes it so exciting. There's no such thing really as ties in MMA, and you know that every single fight you're going to see something different, and it's the one sport that you can't really predict. Because I've been watching this sport for over 10 years, and I've gotten plenty of predictions wrong, which to me makes it the most unpredictable sport on the planet.
Now, I'd like to point out the fact that you use the words will and perseverance. Now, those are two things, or two concepts, that I would argue can be applied to living a successful life with a disability.
I could concur with that. Yep.
Have you has MMA taught you anything personally about
perseverance?
About perseverance, or you want to be a journalist, about social messages you may want to send?
Well, I think it's one of the most interesting sports to cover, even from a journalism perspective, because every single day, just like the NFL, every single day there's fight news. Someone has fallen out of a fight, and a new fight has been made. So everyone has to stay on top of that. What it's taught me is that no matter what your socioeconomic background may be, no matter what previous MMA experience, if any that you've had, that you can go in there against anybody, and if you have the necessary skills, primarily ground fighting first, you have a legitimate shot to win every contest that you compete in. Which is what makes it very interesting, which makes it very fascinating to me. So on a weekend basis when there are shows, I'm very curious always.
He is. I can hear him screaming from his room, and I come running over to see what happens. But anyway, to draw it somewhat closer to wheelchair sports, one of the main, shall I say, concerns surrounding the Paralympic movement was, up until a couple weeks ago, unequal pay for wheelchair athletes and able-bodied athletes playing the same sport.
Well, this is something I feel strongly that I think that both should be on the same pay scale, and I'm not just saying that as a biased disabled person. I'm saying that if they are athletes, even if they can't physically walk or whatever their disability may confine them of, if they are talented enough and if they are skilled enough, and if the same able-bodied person gets first place and gets X amount of money, than the same Paralympic athlete that gets first place at their own sport, which they work just as hard, if not harder, than the able-bodied person should get the same amount, maybe even more, depending on their popularity.
So, let me spin a classic debate.
Okay?
And that is whether college athletes should be paid. There is a disabled a punter with a disability. He is 13 years old. I forget his name right now, but he got the
I know who you're talking about too. I don't know his name either, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
But he got the chance to hold kicks for the Vikings place kicker.
Okay?
What type of what do you think of the way that event was covered?
I don't think there was enough focus on it.
Exactly.
This is only the second time I'm hearing about it.
Exactly. That is part of what I would argue to be the major problem.
Okay?
Most of mainstream media with the exception of Speechless. For those of you who haven't seen Speechless, it's on ABC. It's a great show, and JJ is the funniest TV character in existence, but in any case, that show really does what this show does. It casts the light on athletes as human beings. Where do you feel is the line between the athletic persona, or in your case, the commentator persona, and the everyday persona that you have?
So, are you asking me exactly how do I go about communicating with athletes? Or what exactly do I look for in them as to why I keep going back to them, or why I care about them?
Is there a different mentality you go in with when you talk to an athlete, disabled or not, as a journalist, than when you talk to, let's say, people?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, it depends on the athlete, because there are the athletes who you interact with where you just know them as a player, and then there are the athletes who you try to get to know on a more personal level. And I always try to go with the angle of, I want to know these athletes on a more personal level. Yes, I want to know how the team chemistry is going. I want to know how they're doing individually. But at the end of the day, athletes are also human beings, and sometimes people forget that they have feelings and they have hearts, and the majority of them have compassion for people. So I always try to get the best out of every athlete, no matter what their outside reputation may be, because I want to try to get to know the real them, whether it's good or bad, and then make judgments from there on out. But most of the athletes I've ever gotten a chance to interview or talk to, I've had nothing but tremendous things to say about every single one of them for the most part. And I try to follow the ones who I feel not only are great at their sport, but that are just tremendous people overall. Not just people on this campus, but people that I even know back home that carry that same mindset that I just described. So
Right. Now, both of us are members, or both of us are members of two specified groups. As I may have mentioned on the air last week, in the wake of what happened in Pittsburgh, hope everyone's doing okay out there, by the way. I am a faithful Jew. And obviously, I have CP. So being part of two historically, shall I say, dampened groups, has that played a role in what's drawn you to sports?
Yeah, most definitely, because I've always seen sports from an outsider perspective, because I can't play, but what has really drawn me to sports is the daily interaction that I was able to have with these players, pursuing my roles that I did in high school, which made me more confident when I meet athletes, and how I'm supposed to talk to them, because I've been there and I've done that. I'm not walking in as some stranger who is like a kid in a candy store and nervous to ask questions. I go in hoping for the best and hoping to get the best out of them, and most of them actually, some are nice enough to like ask me like about my disability, but most look past it and don't feel it's important to really bring it up, and they just look at me as me, and I appreciate that. I think that's the way we're supposed to do it.
Now, viewers, you may be asking why I spent the majority of the last 15 minutes firing questions at this guy. And the answer is A, I want to get to know him, but B, and more important, the show, is that I intend to show you that there are more sides to these athletes and aspiring commentators than meets the eye. A prime example of this is Tatiana McFadden, who, as most of my listeners and tonight viewers know, has won all 4 marathons in the same year, with essentially only her upper body. Now, that is a story of one of the things I've been talking about all show long: perseverance. Now, when you hear stories like this, and you see athletes overcoming obstacles, do they fulfill their role in motivating you?
Absolutely. I mean, the Tatiana McFadden story is like that. That's a story where one day a movie could be made about that. That's something that people only dream about. To win 4 gold medals with only your upper body. I'm imagining how many different specifications and how many different things she had to go through just to even get to that point is a tremendous feat that I think people are forgetting. It's not just that she won 4 gold medals, is that she did it using what she had and not worrying about what she didn't have, which is what makes it extremely, extremely powerful and motivating. And if you look at a story like that, and someone's down on their luck and they see that could motivate them to get up out of bed the next morning and do something with their life in a positive manner. And that's something that I feel is impressive. I mean, I don't want every athlete that I ever meet to have an inspiring story, but when you hear something along those lines, it just makes you sit back and think, wow, there's more to sports than just a game. These are actually human beings that are trying to
Write the script. Write the script with the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a stigma out there that we in the disabled community, athletes or not, are seen as inspirational for doing normal things. Does hearing an inspirational story like Tatiana's further that notion, you think?
Yeah, because I think the general public still thinks in that way, which I think is kind of unfortunate. Because, and I can understand why they do it. They're not the ones. They're not the ones living like us. They're not the ones where they need help every day doing basic tasks that other people take for granted. And I think it's something that people need to sit back and think about. But because of how fast media travels these days, they see that and they say, oh yeah, it's great, it's so inspiring, and then they just move on to the next thing. Because the attention span of people is so short these days that you don't actually sit back and look at the big picture. And I think that that's something that other people outside of our community, like the able-bodied community, could do a better job of, is actually looking into a deeper lens in regarding that.
One of your favorite voices, the voice of Illini football
Brian Barnhart.
on the road, is Brian Barnhart. I was trying to think of his name earlier in the show, so thank you. Anyway, you know him personally.
I've only had like brief interactions with him. I've always admired his work, though. I don't know him truly personally, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he's covered Illinois athletics for a long time.
Yes, a very long time, since 2001, I think.
What do you think would be his reaction listening to us discuss this and kind of enlighten?
If I were to take an educated guess, I would say that he would be proud of us that we're speaking about issues in sports that we care about, and that we feel like we're knowledgeable enough to talk about every subject that you brought up for the last 20 minutes. I think it would be something that he would be very, very enlightened of.
Yes.
Without a doubt.
Yes, I do believe that one of the roles that sports broadcasters have is to act as an agent of change. And that's what I'm here to do. Now, normally on shows in the studio, we have a segment known as The Last Big Thing,
Okay?
in which we talk about something that's happened to us this week or this month in relation to sports or otherwise that can be used to inspire our listeners.
Okay?
I will let you go first as the guest of honor.
Thank you. So my big thing that has happened this month is I am taking on a role at Big Ten Student U, and for those viewers who don't know, Big Ten Student U is a student-run program by by Illini Productions, and what they pretty much do is they broadcast the games that don't get television coverage on the Big Ten Network. And one of the jobs as an early member of the RSO, I guess you could call it, is you have to pick...
RSO, for those people who don't know, is Registered Student Organization.
That is 100% accurate. So back to what I was saying, one of the roles that you play early in your time there is you have to shadow 2 games. So I wanted to ensure that my first ever Illinois basketball game was going to be an experience to remember. So I took it upon myself to make sure to go shadow Illinois' exhibition game last Friday against Illinois Wesleyan.
He did. I was there with him.
Which they won, and I got a chance to sit courtside and shadow the Big Ten student broadcasters, who in fact had a tremendous broadcast that night. And it was just very cool to be able to go back to my roots, sit courtside for a basketball game, which is something I did all throughout high school, and just to make my first ever Illinois game a memorable one.
My last big thing for the week goes back a couple years now to my senior year in high school. At which point I had informally taken on the role to commentate for the high school women's team, and I commentated no less than 4 national championships, and each won.
Which is a story you have told me a few times now.
Yes.
But each time you tell it, there's a different angle to it.
Yes. And the angle for tonight is that I remember this as clear as day.
Okay.
And Katie McMahon, if you're watching, this is for you. Katie, it's her senior year, last game, okay? 5 minutes to go, team down by 10 points. Earlier that half, I had interviewed Coach Gina.
Okay.
Coach Gina Mark. And I asked her about Katie. Injured. On the bench. Can only barely use one leg. Okay? So 2 minutes to go. Point guard has the ball.
Okay.
The defense steals it.
Okay.
They score again. It's now 12 points.
And if they lost, what would happen?
They lost. If they lost, their season would be over. Coach, actually, during the timeout, normal broadcasters aren't allowed to do this.
Okay.
During the timeout, she called me into the huddle to fire the team up. And that experience of having them then score 14 points within the final minute 30 to win the national championship for the 4th straight year is one of the things I always have in the back of my head when I'm on the show. It's an inspirational role I've embraced, a mission I continue, and a role I hope to have as a member of this broadcast team. With that, I've been Avery Schaefer for Rollin Illini. Until next time, for my partner Zain Bando, good night.